All right, guys, so we're finally gonna dive into the AK-47. All right, so before we even get started with this video, you guys need to know a couple of things. Number one, this is my very first experience with an AK of any type ever in my life. For those of you who don't know or are new to this channel, YouTube has been my way of exploring different types of firearms and learning about them along with you guys and things like that. So I'm probably gonna make a few mistakes in this video, just get over it. But also feel free to correct me down in the comments section as we go through this video. But after doing a lot of research and talking with other people that I trust and know very well, I asked them what are the top things that you would look for in an American-made AK-47, and I compiled a list, and we're gonna be reviewing this Palmetto State Armory AK-47, and we're gonna go over those top 5 things and see if this actually stacks up. So if you didn't see my previous videos, I've recently kind of started playing with Palmetto State Armory parts, and we did a AR-15 build, which was like, I think I called it the stupid cheap AR-15 build. I mean, we literally built it for less than $500, got this awesome 10.5-inch pistol, all that cool stuff. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down in the description so you can go watch that playlist. But after that one, I had a great experience with it. And I was like, you know what? I want to try some different types of guns. So I got the Palmetto State Armory AK-47. I've gone out and I put quite a few rounds through it. I think we're about 200 rounds. It's not a lot because I have another video planned. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive up close in a second. We're gonna go over all the technical details about this to answer any of the questions that you might have about the PSA AK-47. And then we're gonna talk about, the top 5 things. We're gonna talk about the range footage, how it cycled. Did I have any issues? Was it reliable? Was it kind of accurate? So we're gonna answer all of that. Let's stop wasting time. Let's just dive up close and get to it. All right, guys, so here we are up close with the PSA AK-47 GF3. We're gonna go over the tech specs right now, and then we're gonna talk about, the top 5 things that you should look for when purchasing an AK, especially when purchasing a budget AK. So when the Palmetto State Armory AK-47s kind of first launched a couple of years ago, there was a few issues that they had with it. And they took everyone's feedback, and they have since corrected those issues. So the first thing that we would like to talk about with this one is this one is the Gen 3. They just released these. Going over the top 5 things that you should look for, one of those top 5 things is your front trunnion right up here. What kind of material is it made out of? That was one of the biggest things that I saw and heard from people that I spoke with was the material of this guy right up here, which is known as your front trunnion. The main thing is stay away from cast. These are made out of a hammer forged steel. So is the bolt carrier, as well as the trunnion, all hammer forged. The barrel is a 4150 nitrided treated, and it is actually pressed into this front trunnion down in here. The barrel is a 1 in 9.5 twist for the 7.62 by 39. On the rear here, we have the adjustable elevation for the sight, all the way from 0 all the way up to 800 meters, which we'll talk some more about pros and cons of the sights here in a second. They're made in the United States. They're made out of quality parts. They didn't start out to be decent quality for the price, but they did definitely develop into that. First things that one of my friends told me to look for was the rivets. So if you look at these rivets right here, you can see that they're pressed and seated properly into the side receiver. Sometimes, if you have a cheaper AK that's been put together poorly, they will be pressed too far in, and that's usually back here on the rear, which isn't the case, but it will actually bend the receiver inwards, or they're not pressed in enough. This one definitely passes that test. None of the receivers are bent, and nothing is loose or overpressed. So that's a good thing. So that covers number 2 and number 3. You want them to be seated properly, but at the same time, you don't want them to be pressed too far in to actually be where they bend the receiver itself. Now, one thing that I've been looking at, and I can't tell a difference, and it might be difficult to show you guys on camera. If you're looking at an AK, you want to see if this barrel is bent in relation to the front trunnion. And some of them are a little bit canted to the left or the right. Not every single one of them, even the higher end ones, are 100% straight. But this one definitely seems, by eyeballing it, to be well aligned with the barrel and the trunnion. Now, this really doesn't apply to newer AKs. So the bolt on this one is actually very smooth. You got your first stop right here, and then you can pull it back and let it go home. Very, very smooth action, especially considering the AKs. All the metal on this rifle seems to be coated the same way. Everything seems to have that nitride coating right up through here. You got a sling mount right up here in the front. I don't see any real variations in the coating, so I'm assuming it's all nitrided all the way throughout. This one has the blood red furniture, which honestly, it looks really sexy. It kind of goes back to the original design of when in Russia, they would actually dip the wood in actual blood to stain it. But there is some cons about this that we're gonna talk about a little bit later. Now, another thing that I was told to look for with an AK is to make sure that this scope mount rail isn't aligned with the bore of the barrel. And after looking at this one, I don't know if it really is or not. So if we put this on here, oops. I mean, this is the only real way I have to test this. And maybe I'm looking at this incorrectly, but it seems like it is angled downward a little bit. And so if this continued out, it would actually go below the bore. So we're gonna be doing an update video, and I'm gonna order a scope mount, a decent one as well, and then throw a red dot on it. And then we're gonna see if it isn't in line. And if it isn't aligned properly, can we fix that with elevation changes? Because that's something that is important to me. I wanna put a red dot on it. You'll see why here in a second. So let me take it apart real quick. Let's look at this guy up close. Like I said, I haven't even cleaned it. I cleaned it once when it arrived. So this is what the rod looks like after we fired a few hundred rounds through it. Just gonna wipe it off. It's got some blue residue on it. I'm not sure what that is. That's kind of fascinating. I'm actually gonna clean this up. Let me find my stuff. I'm gonna spray a little bit of this shooter lube on it. This is a solvent. It's a two-step system. It's a solvent and lubrication separately. I've been using this for over a year, but I'm just interested to see how well it will clean off this tarnish, because this thing was like stainless steel when I first got it. I've literally just sprayed it on. It hasn't been sitting or anything, and just tried to wipe it right away. I'm pretty sure if I let this stuff sit longer that it would clean it up a lot better, but that's what I love about this stuff. It's a 100% organic. I mean, it has zero odor to it, and it works quite well at getting stuff off of your gun. So that was just with a microfiber and just spraying it. So I sprayed it again. I'm gonna try out this little brush right here. See what we can get off of this guy. I'm starting to see the shininess break through the carbon buildup up here. I'm not gonna do a thorough cleaning. We're actually gonna do a cleaning video separately. But I just wanted to see what I could get just really quick with this. And so far, it doesn't look half bad. See what the inside looks like here. It's not looking half bad for 250 rounds, but we'll definitely be doing more videos on this. The trigger on this isn't half bad either. Let's take a look at that. So here, it's a very, very light trigger, and there's no wall to it. Yeah. There's really not that much take up. And let me show you. Okay. The reset, it could be smoother, but it forces your finger out. It's nice, audible, and tactile. But there's literally no like wall on this. You're in the wall. I mean, you see how quickly that happened, right? Let's test the pull weight of that. I'm just gonna test it right here. I'm just gonna hold this still. I'm not gonna help this trigger though. All right. And that's about consistent with what I've been getting. I've been getting between 3 and 3.5 pounds. Seems to be very consistent. The other thing I thought was very fascinating was I have handled an AK in the past, but like I said, this is like my first real experience. The safety on it is very easy to manipulate. I really like that a lot. It's not like it's so hard that, you know, it's gonna be a pain to move, but it's not so loose that you feel like it's gonna flop around. Back up top. That was all the tech specs, everything in all its glory. It seems so far that this AK-47 actually meets most, if not all, of the top 5 things that you should look for. But now the question kind of becomes, well, what are the pros and cons of this particular model? Well, first, let's talk about the cons. The first con is it doesn't seem like the scope mount is actually completely level with the bore of the rifle based off of what I can see with a ruler. I'm gonna purchase an adapter so I can mount a red dot to it. That way we can take it to the range, we can test the accuracy of this in a later video. That's why I didn't do accuracy tests in this video, because I wanna get a scope mount, put a red dot on it, and see, you know, if it is actually level or if I run out of elevation adjustments on the red dot to make it zeroed. That's something that's kind of important to me, and I think it's gonna be something that's important to you, so that's why we haven't done that part of of the video yet, but just based on the ruler, it doesn't look like it's level, but hey, I could be completely wrong. I could be measuring it incorrectly. I'm sure somebody will correct me down in the comments. The next con is the sights. Now this isn't to this particular model. That's pretty much all AK-47 sights. On this rear sight back here, it is super narrow. It is really difficult to get a good sight alignment easily, especially if your target is dark like your sights. If you don't have good contrast, it's damn near impossible to be super accurate. But with that said though, the AK-47 wasn't designed to be a distant shooter. It was designed for combat. It was designed to just be out on the front lines and shoot targets that are a lot closer. So maybe that's not an issue. Maybe it is, but I want to try to find a widened sight, if not file it out a little bit. Let's talk about the third con that I have found thus far, and that is the furniture is super slippery. I mean, as you can see, although it is a beautiful blood red, it is very, very slick. So I will be changing out the furniture on this here in the near future. We'll probably put some Magpul stuff on it. And you know, honestly, this blood red isn't exactly my style, but I do want to keep the furniture because it is a very traditional style for the AK. But that's something else that I need to change. I'm probably gonna get some gray furniture for it. I'll put a link below to where you guys can see probably some of the future mods that I'm gonna be doing to this, as well as where you can pick up these guns for, you know, a good price. So let's talk about the pros. Pro number one, it did seem to meet 4 out of the top 5 things that you should look for, which really isn't bad considering the price of this. Now, brings me to my next pro. The price of these, just depending on when you buy them, they can be sometimes less than $500. Sometimes they're about $600. I've never seen them for more than $600. I'll put a link below because if you do find these in stock, they sell super quick. It's not something you can really think about because they're actually decent American-made AK-47s that are made by a reputable company. Pro number 2 is the trunnions. The trunnions up here are made out of steel instead of cast parts. Make sure they're not cast parts because that's where a lot of your pressures happen. Right up here is in the trunnion. So the next pro is honestly the fit and finish. You know, everything on here pretty much is nitrided. Nothing's really blued that I can see. Everything has a very nice nitride coating, but it's not the slippery nitride. It's got a nice texture to it, almost like a velvety satin finish on the metal parts. And although the furniture is slippery, it is very, very sexy on how it reflects light and looks good. I get it. You don't buy these guns to keep them all pretty, but out of the box, it looks pretty. So far, this thing has been cycling every single round, no malfunctions. The next pro about it is the trigger right here. You know, as we saw it up close, it ranges about 3 to 3.5 pounds, just kind of depending on where the actual gauge lands on the trigger shoe. But it's very, very light. It seems like there's no wall to it, so that could be a pro or a con, just kind of depending on how you like your triggers to feel. But looking at it right here, it seems like it's at the wall already. And then the reset is not too bad. It could be a little bit smoother, but it is very much powerful. It pushes your finger back out. And that's something that I like with triggers in general. But the final pro about the PSA AK-47 is the price, like I mentioned earlier. For the money, I'm gonna say it's gonna be tough to beat. Now with AK-47s, they've always tended to be on one end of the spectrum or the other. There was never really any middle ground. You either got dirt cheap and crap, or you spend a lot of money to get something nice. And this one does seem to fit that bill of being right in the middle, but for the bargain price. So maybe I'm wrong. We will definitely be putting more and more rounds through this. We're gonna do an accuracy test as soon as I get the scope mount, and we are gonna be modding the crap out of this to fit my taste profile. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. Have you tried this particular AK-47, the Palmetto State Armory? If you did, what was your experience like? Did you have any problems? And so with that being said, I can honestly say at this point in time, I would definitely buy it again, knowing what I know now. But hey, I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. But until next time, guys, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.